Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are two of the most wealthiest men on this entire planet. However, a ton of wealth has literally been shaven off from both of them, with Tesla's market cap falling hundreds of billions of dollars and Jeff Bezos' Amazon stock falling below pandemic levels. Look at this, guys. Now, there's a big debate between economists defining whether or not we're currently in a recession or whether or not a recession is coming. However, I wanted to share the perception between Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos on what's going on in this economy, because I think it's fair and safe to assume that their insight definitely holds some value on what's going on. And I'm gonna go ahead and break down the reason why going forward. With that being said, I want you guys to hear from the billionaires themselves, and starting off with Jeff Bezos.
We are in some tough economic times.
Yeah.
Some people say that perhaps we're already in a recession. Do you think that we're in one?
I don't know whether we're technically in a recession. I know economists argue over that and they have certain technical definitions. What I can tell you is the economy does not look great right now. Things are slowing down. You're seeing layoffs in many, many sectors of the economy. People are slowing down. The probabilities say if we're not in a recession right now, we're likely to be in one very soon. So my advice to people, whether they're small business owners or, is take some risk off the table. If you were going to make a purchase, maybe slow down that purchase a little bit. Keep some dry powder on hand. And wait a bit and see how. Try to reduce some risk in your business or your life.
Well, you tweeted batten down the hatches.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you mean by that?
That's what I mean. Well, if you're an individual and you're thinking about buying a new, large screen TV, maybe slow that down, keep that cash, see what happens. Same thing with a refrigerator or a new car or whatever. Let's take some risk off the table. If you're a small business, maybe delay some capital purchases. Do you really need that new piece of equipment? Maybe it can wait a little bit. Have some cash on hand. Just a little bit of risk reduction could make the difference for that small business if we do get into even more serious economic problems. So you got to play the probabilities a little bit.
Any idea in terms of what you're hearing or just with your expertise as to how long this recession could last?
I don't think even the most experienced economists in the world can answer that question. It's a very challenging thing to try and estimate. So I think you just have to try and be reasonable about it, take as much risk off the table as you can for yourself. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I'm an optimist. I think the American dream is and will be even more attainable in the future.
So there's Jeff Bezos' current view on the economy. Now, the reason why I believe that Jeff Bezos' perspective holds a ton of weight is because I myself am someone who's very data driven. And you guys have to understand that Jeff Bezos literally has some of the largest data in the palm of his hands, as his association and ties with Amazon, which is the largest distributor of consumer goods. So Jeff Bezos himself can see how consumer confidence is actually reflected in the economy. And I know some of you guys may be thinking, well, wait, Justin, we already have charts that illustrate how consumer confidence is going. We have the CCI report, Justin. We don't need Jeff Bezos' insight. We already have that down. However, guys, there's a major problem, right? As someone who's data driven, one of the problems with data is understanding how accurate that data is, right? Because a lot of times statistics and data can really lie to you. So we had the CCI report. However, if you look into the website for the Consumer Confidence Index, you're gonna see that they get their information simply by surveying 3,000 people per month. Now, if you're not catching on why that's a big problem, let me go ahead and break this down for you. There is a vast dichotomy between the data of surveying 3,000 people in the entire country versus someone who has access to data of billions of people and what their spending patterns and activities are. On top of the actual difference between the numbers, there's also a difference of how the data is acquired. One is acquired by doing surveys, which we know people can lie. How many times have you lied on a survey? I know sometimes I like to, mess around. However, what Jeff Bezos has is data of actual activity, right? This isn't people just messing around, giving whatever answer that they feel like giving at the time. This is actual spending activity. So this, to me, is more accurate. And I'm sure you guys all heard the saying before, actions speak louder than the words. And of course, spending activity is more like an action and surveys are just words. With that being said, I also want to show you guys what Elon Musk has to say and then also break that down as well, so we could get a better understanding of what is taking place. Now guys, before we go on to Elon's side of the story, I do want to point out something that I find very interesting, especially as someone who's very data driven, and that is the fact that over 90% of people that watch my channel are not subscribed. So if you're watching this video and you have any value from this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And with that being said, let's go ahead and transition into Elon's side.
How do you assess our current economic situation?
Well, predicting macroeconomics is always difficult, and one should assign probabilities to these things. But ironically, I did last year. People asked me what I think about the economy. I said, well, I think we might enter a recession in approximately spring of 2022.
Called it. Nailed it.
Now the thing is that recessions are not necessarily a bad thing. I've now been through a few of them, and what tends to happen is if you have a boom that goes on for too long, you get misallocation of capital. It starts raining money on fools, basically. It's like any dumb thing gets money, and I'm sure you've seen a few of those. So at some point it gets just out of control, and you just have a misallocation of human capital, where people are doing things that are silly and not useful to their fellow human beings. And then those companies, there needs to be sort of an economic enema, if you will. Eventually the economic enema does its job, it clears out the pipes, if you will.
Yes.
and sort of the bullshit companies go bankrupt, and the ones that are doing useful products are prosperous. But there's certainly a lesson here that if one is making useful product and has a company that makes sense, make sure you're not running things too close to the edge from a capital standpoint. They've got some capital reserves to last through irrational times. Because in the past, when there's been a recession, it has gone. It's amazing. It's flipped like a light switch. I mean, David, do you remember this from the PayPal, ex-PayPal days, when we raised $100 million in March of 2000. And we had the demand was so high, we had people like VCs like just literally without even a term sheet wiring money into our account.
We'll send the term sheet later.
they literally would like sleuth out our bank account number and wire money in. And we're like, where'd this come from? And it's like, so it was like there was literally fire hosing money in March of 2000. And then in April 2000, the market went into free fall, and it went from raising money was trivial to even good companies could not raise money in a month. So it's just important to bear in mind that PayPal almost went bankrupt in 2000. We came close, but thankfully we'd raised that $100 million in March 2000, without which we'd be in game over basically. And we kind of saw it coming. So it's like we got the X-Confinity merger done in like 3 weeks and raised $100 million because we were like, we see this coming to an end pretty soon. And then a month later, it was like, a nightmare basically. Anyway, so it's just important to make sure if you're a healthy company, you got some capital to get through things. And then what's your costs? And if it is a recession, which more likely than not, it is a recession. Not saying it is, but it probably is. Then just watch your cash flow and get to positive cash flow as soon as you can. But I think we probably are in a recession, and that recession will get worse. But these things pass, and then there will be boom times again. So it'll probably be some tough going for, I don't know, a year, maybe 12 to 18 months is usually the amount of time that takes for a correction to happen. I mean, the obvious reason for inflation is that the government printed a zillion amount of more money than it had, obviously. So it's like the government can't just have issue checks far in excess of revenue without there being inflation. Velocity of money held constant. So unless there's something would change with velocity of money, but it's just if the federal government writes checks, they never bounce. So that is effectively creation of more dollars. And if there are more dollars created than the increase in the goods and services output of the economy, then you have inflation. Again, velocity of money held constant. This is very basic. This is not like super complicated. And if the government could just issue massive amounts of money and deficits didn't matter, then why don't we just make the deficit 100 times bigger? Okay, yeah. The answer is you can't, because it will basically turn the dollar into something that is worthless. So, and various countries have tried this experiment multiple times. It's not like, oh, I wonder what happens if this is done. Yeah. Have you seen Venezuela? Like the poor people of Venezuela have been just run roughshod by their government. And so obviously you can't simply create money.
So both Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos believe that a recession is either here or coming. However you want to define it, a recession is passing, which definitely speaks volume, especially if you hear Jeff Bezos telling you, hey, maybe you should slow down on spending. I mean, this is a guy who makes billions of dollars from people spending. So for him to say that definitely means a lot. Now, Elon Musk perceives a recession as a necessary. It's part of the business cycle. And for me personally, I do agree. However, I also believe that the Federal Reserve's main job is to make sure that these cycles aren't so drastic as they are right now. For example, I understand that inflation is gonna, fluctuate from here and there, but from the levels that we are at, even though we are cooling down, we're still gonna have a difficult time getting to that 2% goal that the Federal Reserve has, which is, making the Federal Reserve lose credibility, which is definitely a big issue. Now, guys, I do also wanna highlight something that Elon mentioned that I thought was very interesting, and that was the fact that, once you're at the end of a boom, we're kind of at this level where, there's just stupid money all over the place. And it kind of reminds me of 2021 where SPACs were just rampantly high. If you guys didn't watch my last video, definitely check it out at the end of this video, where I talked about how a lot of these special purpose acquisition companies came out of nowhere, went up soaring high in these stock prices, and absolutely had no fundamental value. So it kind of makes sense that once things do turn, these companies kind of disappear. It is part of the cycle. And again, I do agree that there are certain times where stupid money has to disappear. In my opinion, it's not about a recession passing. It's really about how bad is it going to get. But of course, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and make sure to watch this next video right over here. I'll see you guys on that next video.